Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining today. I'm Jocelyn Houle, Senior Director of Product Management here at Security. I'm really excited about today's webinar. Throughout my whole career, I've worked with many CEOs, CDOs to deliver very large-scale transformative data platforms. I've worked with very small companies, a couple of my own. I've worked with big companies like Microsoft and Fannie Mae and Capital One, and like everybody has the same problems. They all want to unlock business value from their data. And this has been a long time problem that is newly solvable as we work towards having truly cloud-based data, as we have the data command center at Security, which will allow you to get full context on all the data, no matter what the file format is or the where it's stored. And so we're really excited today to introduce you to a customer and a partner who are working on one big idea with us. And that big idea is, how do you make sure to keep all the consent work, all the privacy work, the securing work actually supports real business value? Because what we want is to have innovation happen. We want to be able to get the fastest and best marketing campaigns, which we'll talk about today, while staying well managed and keeping all of our promises to our customers and our partners about how we take care of data. So I'm super excited to talk about that in this context of Customer 360. I'm going to ask our other panelists here to introduce themselves. We have our customer, Bradley Green.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Brad. I'm the Senior Director of Marketing Technology over at Camping World, running all of our MarTech efforts, customer data, really the technical side of marketing.
Naveen.
Yeah, hi everyone. Thanks for your time again. I'm Naveen, Senior Architect at Snowflake, based out of UK.
Great, thank you. I'm really excited to have both a customer perspective and a technology perspective, because you're also going to be able to kind of represent the conversation that we're having amongst all your peers as we're thinking about how this ability to combine consent and Customer 360 is actually kind of a pattern that you could use to adopt more Gen AI. And we'll touch on that at the end of the session. Those of you who are in the audience, if you'd like to post questions in Q&A, that's fine. But we're going to probably take our questions at the end. So I'll let you know that right now. We'll definitely save some time. Naveen, just in case, for our audience, I mean, I feel like I eat, sleep, and breathe Snowflake for many years, but in case you don't know Snowflake, can you give the audience just a quick overview of how Snowflake fits into the business? And I'll share my screen so you can see your slides.
Sure. So to start with, right, so the objective of Snowflake is to basically solve data silos. So once you break the data silos, then you can generate value out of it. It can be a basic data foundation, a simple data lake use case, or generative AI use case, LLM use case, or even scale your application. So all that will happen only if you just break your data silos, bring all your data into one platform where you can scale infinitely. So that's what Snowflake offers. Jocelyn, can you go to the next slide? Yeah. So what Snowflake is, if you people are wondering, so it's a SaaS data platform. So it has infinite scalability of the storage, infinite scalability of the compute, and also infinite scalability in the data sharing side. So what we mean by data share is one company can interact with another company. So if, again, it's all governed, secured, irrespective of region, irrespective of your cloud provider, you'll be able to share data among yourselves. It can be internal or external. So we have around nearly, you can see the stats there, nearly 2,000 market listings, which means it's a data share. And we have around close to 9,000 customers at the moment. So we, because of this different architecture, we'll be able to support data warehouse based architecture, data lake, lake house, or even data mesh type of architecture. So that's what Snowflake is.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. I always like to just level set with people, even though, you know, you feel like Snowflake's such a big brand name. Camping World is also a brand name, but I'm wondering if people understand enough about what you do, how big the business is. We're going to put a couple of slides in the deck for people to refer to as well, or I can put them up for you, Brad. But do you want to just tell us a little bit about what Camping World is?
Yeah, absolutely. So Camping World is really everything having to do with the RV space. We're an RV dealer. We have RV parts and accessories retail locations. We have a whole services line of business under the brand Good Sam for roadside assistance for RVs, maintenance plans for RVs, campgrounds for staying in your RV somewhere. So if it relates to an RV or the RV space in any sort of way, we probably have a business product for it. We have roughly 200 dealers in the United States, and have been in business since 1966.
And you're a public company as well, right?
Yes, publicly traded, I believe since 2016.
Okay. All right. And what's going on in the RV world? I feel like it's been going through a lot of changes and growing. Is that right?
Yeah, so we really experienced a massive growth in the space, especially with new customers in 2020. When the pandemic hit, traditional travel, air travel, cruise ships, any sort of vacation people would want to take was kind of off the table. And a lot of people started to realize that RV camping is really one of the only methods of travel and vacation that was available. So we really saw a huge surge in new customers to the RV lifestyle through that time.
Great. We're going to talk a little bit more about that because I think in these changing times, you need, specialized campaigns more than ever. And I want to go a little deeper on that. But I do want to kind of share with you kind of how this all comes together because you're a customer of both Snowflake and Security. So let me just kind of, again, for those who may not know us as well as I'd like you to, let me go ahead and give you just a quick overview of what Security does and why we think it's important. As you heard from Naveen, the whole world of data has changed. With cloud data, what we can do is absolutely mind-blowing. I don't even know if I've got my head around it yet totally, but what we do see with customers is they're actually kind of living in this very complex world. Well, cover your ears, Naveen. We would like them to all use Snowflake all the time. But the reality is most organizations have multiple systems. They've got on-prem, hybrid, multi-cloud, and it's getting more and more complicated every day with so many regulations. If you're international, then you've got another headache to deal with. It's constantly kind of a moving target. And then, just when you thought you had your arms around the problem statement, AI comes along and completely blows that up, right? By 100xing the complexity of what you need to do to get the full value out of all your data while still staying well managed. And those really come into questions of like, okay, how do we secure it? How do we keep it private, govern, comply? But what I love about this webinar today is that we're going to talk like, why am I doing these things? Which is a very important question because you want to follow the rules, but you also we're in business to make money and serve the lines of business like Brad's line of business, right? So what we do here is we start with the context, and we are the pioneers of the data command center that really fits over your entire data landscape to offer full context. And let me talk a little bit about how we do that. At the bottom here, you'll see Snowflake is our key partner, but if your organization also has a private cloud, perhaps has SaaS in the form of like Salesforce or Workday, public clouds, everybody's adopting public cloud infrastructure. Well, we pull all of that into a single data command graph and a single data kind of common context or common language to talk about your data. What we're able to do once we capture the data in your environment, as you can see at the bottom, then we can pull in those regulations, third-party data, and of course, very important, Brad and Naveen, we've talked about this. Each organization has their own data policies and regulations that lay on top of that, which makes it extra complicated. So once you're able to get that full context, including regulations and requirements and how to meet all the obligations, you can set up a number of different applications on top of it. And so what Security, the Data Command Center is really offering you a single source of truth across your whole data environment. You'll see here from left to right, there's a ton of things that we do. I would love to come back and talk about them more. We're going to focus on the data policies and data compliance that kind of unlocks better campaigns in Customer 360. So let me move on to that. I wanted to just, we've got a couple of slides on this, but I also, which I can put up, for the audience as we're talking about it, but I wanted to just have a conversation, Brad, a little bit around why do marketers care about Customer 360?
Sure, great question. I think for us in our Customer 360 journey, We realize that, like any business, our customers are our most important asset. And along with that, the customer data and the ability to market to people specifically is critical. In today's world of marketing, it's almost an expectation of the customer that whatever marketing they see is relevant to them. Long gone are the days of, hey, we're just going to blast out this message that maybe applies to some, not others. And so to meet that expectation with our customers, we really had to solve for understanding that full picture of the customer. With a business as complex as ours, with dealership bodies and retail groups and service lines, it was very important for us to be able to understand what does that customer look like holistically across our enterprise, not just, okay, what does this customer look like to our RV dealership? What does it look like to our retail store? What does it look like to our Good Sam businesses? Because at the end of the day, the customers understand us as one company, not as their individual relationships with different parts of the company. So having that unified sort of view of the customer was critical to make all of that work.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, to help me understand a little bit about this customer that sees you as one organization, but from the data perspective, we're the database, right? Let's play that role. If I go to a dealer and then I apply for a loan and then I do servicing, am I all in the same data now for you, or is it split up?
So now that we've solved for it, yes, you are. You've ultimately ended up in that unified data environment. But ultimately, the problem we had to solve for is every step of the way, we have all of these different operational systems and different places where that data is being captured. And previously to kind of solving for this customer 360 model, we were still able to execute on personalized campaigns, but the level of effort to get there of saying, okay, let me check over here for some data, let me check in this system for some data, let me check into this other system for some data, was a massive lift every time we tried to do it. Where now all of that data is consolidated into our Snowflake environment, so it's all in one spot.
Interesting. We talked a little bit about this, but I'm going to just share just a quick overview that you share. I didn't know this when I met you, but that the customer 360, having a single trusted source, really kind of unlocks all of this stuff that we talked about. I'm not going to walk you through the whole slide, but I think it's very interesting that as a customer, I sort of just assume you know all the points of contact with me, but on the back end, you don't always know that. And it's a blocker for the things I feel like I should ask you this question, Brad. Like, it seems like customers want faster and faster responses and offered personalization. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, I think what we've seen is really that expectation of, as you mentioned, if I call into a company, I expect that you understand everything about me, all the different products and services that I've had, all the different transactions that I've made with you, and ultimately that quick response of whether that's customer support or the advertising that I'm seeing, or if I interact with you online and submit a lead, people don't want to wait a long time for that feedback. It's a very instant gratification sort of environment.
That's right. I mean, I feel like that. I feel like, people, Giant or whatever, when I shop for food, they should know exactly what coupons I need and stop giving me coupons for healthy cereal because I want sugar cereal. So what we see here, we've talked about this, is that we have a lot of needs, a lot of digital marketers in particular on the front line for this. And Naveen, jump into if you're seeing this with your customers, is that they need all the information in one place faster. It's got to
Exactly.
be correct,
Accessible. Yeah.
right? It's got to
It
be
has to be
correct.
accessible. Yeah. It has to be. I mean, even we have seen a lot of customers, they come up with ad hoc requests, right? So they need their data to be accessible instantly across geography, right? So that's the problem that we see with the most of the customers. They want the data to be accessible quickly, even though they want the reports and stuffs to be fabricated, but the data needs to be accessible.
Right. It needs to be accessible and consistent and accurate. Like, I'm an old data
Correct.
person from way back, right? We always have to ask the fundamental question is, do we trust this as gold?
Yeah.
Is this what I should be using? If anybody here is on the phone who's been a data analyst, like this is what you wring your hands about at night when you're doing your job. It's like, did I pick the right upstream data? And if you're a CEO or CDO, what keeps you up at night is like, are all these people doing this in such a way that it's auditable, that I can really go back and look at it? So we talked a little bit about like, okay, well, why can't we do those things? Naveen, I'm gonna actually put you on backstage here, but I want you to talk about sort of architecturally why this is complicated. But at the business level, we know that it's hard because there's different lines of business collecting different data, and they have their own grammar and context, right? People are storing data we can't see. This is typical of every large data organization. You know, they're pulling the data down to their machines, or they've like spawned a new bucket nobody's ever registered. I think the most important thing, and Brad, you and I talked about this, is the data prep, because to me, the smartest people in your company spend like 80% of their time manually stitching, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And that was a big level of lift from our side. And as you mentioned, there was always that underlying question of like, okay, we've done the data prep. Do we feel good that it's right, that we've stitched it together the right way, that we've put it together the right way, that we're pulling from the right sources? Because as impactful as targeted marketing can be with relevant offers, the flip side of that is if you do it wrong, you just end up looking bad. If I send you an offer that's completely irrelevant, or I'm making an assumption about your relationship with our company that's not true, the customer sees that and says, they don't know anything about me. Why am I even seeing this? This is weird. Was this a mistake? So it's critical that you can trust that data.
I'm feeling a little anxiety just as you're describing it, because we've got a couple of people from security on here. I think if my boss was on
Mhm.
here, our founders would say, yeah, it's almost better not to do it if you can't get it to be an accurate offer, right? It does more
Yep.
damage if it's wrong.
Yeah.
And I think, now let's just like dig in a little bit to, Brad, of course, you're not going to share anything that can't be shared, but I'd love to just sort of specifically talk about consent and the
Mhm.
role of consent. So we have a very nuanced depth approach to consent, but at a business level, when you're trying to do a campaign, what is your thought about how consent plays in?
Yeah, I mean, I think ultimately that's probably one of the most important factors, because you can have this understanding of a customer and have a really relevant offer for them. But if at the end of the day they don't care or don't want to hear about it, it's just a waste of time. And so previously, across all of our different business lines, we had a way for our customers to manage their consent and manage the types of messages they wanted to receive, but it was a little bit complicated. It was a little bit hard to find. So what we aimed to do and to solve for was, let's give the customers a very easy to see single pane of glass type look at the consent that they've granted us for different marketing messages, um, to make it an easy experience for the customer, and so they know exactly what types of messages that they can receive. And then on our end, that makes it really easy for us to say, okay, we understand this group of customers. Let's only send it to the people that actually want to hear about it, because otherwise it's just noise. And it might be blocking a different message that those other customers do want to hear about and is relevant to
Ah,
them.
that's great. I like that. It's like a sunk costs approach to
Mhm.
campaigns, right? Because what they're paying
Yep.
attention to is they're not paying attention to something else. I'm gonna
Yep.
steal that and use
Exactly.
it for something. Let me just share with you, like we definitely agree that consent is a nuanced offering, right? That really matters for your customer relationship. I'd also just point out, in case somebody's new to this, is that, consent isn't just cookie consent. Everybody sees that, hey, can we put cookies in, everybody sees those like little banners, but consent is actually getting pretty complicated for a number of reasons. I'm going to just kind of grossly oversimplify this, but the type of consent you're offering isn't just for cookies that land on your machine, but it's really how will you use my data? And the biggest split there, one of the biggest splits is like servicing, paying bills, getting customer service versus full on marketing. Um, this division of intent, I guess intent behind the consent is getting more gets more important when you're in a financial, because you guys do financing as well, right?
Yes, that's correct. Yep.
Okay, so in the finance world, right, there are like some pretty strong rules and a bright line between servicing and billing work versus marketing work. And if you don't get that right, not only does it hurt your customers' experience with you, it could really be a regulatory finding. Maybe not for you
Yep,
guys, but
that's
like in a
right.
bank or something like that. So let me just talk about our focus on universal consent automation. First of all, we offer a complete